This is the Signal Cafe, and today we're speaking with Behfar Jahanshahi, the founder and CEO of Interworks. Interworks was recently named a Forbes Small Giants Award winner, and they take a human approach to everything that they do. You'll see in this interview that whether it's hiring or consulting or business development, they really put people first. Behfar, why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Behfar Jahanshahi. As you mentioned, I'm the CEO of Interworks. We are a tech consultancy with around 180 employees here in the U.S., 40 or so in Europe, about 10 in Australia, and 2 in Singapore. We do the things you might expect an IT consultancy to do. Half of our practice is focused on traditional IT infrastructure, storage, virtualization, et cetera. The other half is, and that business is mostly a regional play. We're based here in Oklahoma. And then the other half of our business focuses on data architecture, data analytics, data visualization. Our clients in that space tend to be medium to Fortune 100 companies around the world, which is why we have locations around the world. In my spare time, I have 2 daughters, a 10 and a 5-year-old girl, and I am passionate about coaching soccer. So I didn't grow up an amazing soccer player or anything like that, but both of my daughters love to play. My 10-year-old is really into it. And the local program we have was giving a lot of attention to the boys and not enough to the girls. And one of my coworkers and I, he also has 3 daughters, and he did play semi-pro. And what happened was we decided that it was time to take the city's program and really elevate it. So we've been pouring a lot of our own time and resources into that over the last year, bringing in the local university and local players from the university to help out and provide mentorship and leadership to the young girls on the team, and we're really working on taking that to the next level. So that consumes all of my time on nights and weekends. They do, yeah. I mean, at the 5-year-old level, it's more just running around, but at the 10-year-old level, it's starting to become a little bit more competitive. And in fact, this weekend we have what's called the State Cup tournament, where all the teams around the state get together and go at it tournament style. So we're looking forward to that.
Nice. My son is 6, and he hasn't started soccer or baseball or anything yet, but he does ninja classes. So he's part of the Austin Ninja Academy.
Nice.
So are you into Transformers? I saw you using the Autobot logo.
Yeah, I'm 43 years old. I mean, I when I grew up, Transformers was a hot thing, and I was definitely into it. And it was Transformers, G.I. Joes, all that good stuff. But for me, I was always a big fan of Transformers. When I played with things like Legos, I would try and build Transformer sets where each individual robot could transform, and then they could all come together to make one big thing. I was always just a big fan. So, it sounds silly to say, but, you had kind of Optimus Prime, this leader, good guy, always, seemed to stand up for the right things. At least that's how I remember it. And I use his logo a lot, instead of, when some app requires an avatar or a picture of me, I end up putting the Autobot symbol there or something with Optimus Prime in it instead.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I watched G.I. Joe, Ninja Turtles, He-Man. Didn't watch a lot of Transformers when I was growing up, but my son has recently gotten into Transformers. And so you're absolutely right. You remember correctly. Optimus Prime is an incredible leader, and that's really cool. Are your girls into it?
They are not. No, it's there's a whole new wave of toys that are, I think, new to the market. And what's crazy to me is I thought something was maybe a little off with my daughters, because they will get on YouTube and watch videos of other kids playing with toys. And I thought, this is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. And then I started talking to other parents, and their kids do the same thing. So I guess this is the new thing. You play with your own toys, but you watch videos of other people opening toys and playing with them.
it's fascinating. It's the concept of mirror neurons. You know how we learn how to throw a baseball or to do other things by watching other people. It's monkey see, monkey do, and
Yeah.
so same like neural circuitry is firing in our brains when we watch somebody throw a baseball, as well as when we're throwing a baseball. And so I imagine that the same thing goes with these unboxing videos online
Yeah.
where it's just flooding my son's brain with dopamine as he watches people unwrap surprise bags.
Sure. Yeah. And I think, I really thought it was incredibly odd. And then I saw like a comic strip or a joke or something where, it kind of referenced, well, look at what adults do. They watch other people bake or remodel their kitchen or whatever it may be. And I thought, well, actually, now that I think about it, that's right. We sit around and watch other people do things we could be doing ourselves. And that's, I guess that's just the way the world works.
Yeah, unfortunately, as much as possible, I try to catch myself and say, how can I be a creator or a producer rather than a consumer all the time? But being a consumer is much easier.
Agreed.
Well, cool. So, y'all were recently named by Forbes as one of the best small companies in the world, in America. Um, and it was the Small Giants Award. And this is how I got turned on to Interworks. So y'all were founded in '96.
Correct.
And was it just you? Did you kind of start it as a tech consultancy on your own?
Yeah. So what happened was, again, I'm 43. I graduated, high school in '94. And what happened was growing up, today everyone has a computer. I mean, my daughter has a computer. Back then it was not, it was the exception, not the standard or not the default. And I think that I was just always into it from a very early age. I was into it. My dad got me a Commodore VIC-20 in second grade, and I wanted this thing to play video games on. You couldn't just go download video games like you can today or run to Walmart. You had to program it in, and he bought me a book it was all code. Chapter 1 was a game. Chapter 2 was a different game. Chapter 3 was a different game. So in elementary school, I'm just transposing code. I don't even really know how to type onto the computer. And, you get to the end of the chapter and you type the word run to run all the code, and it comes right back and says error line 1. So I got to go back to line 1 and look at the book and look at the computer and see what's different and why aren't things working. And what happened was, after going through that whole book, which took a long, long time, and playing all the games, I accidentally learned how to program. And maybe it was a deliberate, intent by my dad. But growing up, I mean, was just always into tech. If something was broken at the house, if the TV didn't work, a hair dryer quit working, it didn't go in the trash. We would sit around the table and open it up and look at the parts and see what we could figure out. So high school rolled around, and I became, the sort of just known as a computer person. And when people needed help, or it was a lot of times it was my friends' parents, because were just getting computers and no one knew how to do anything with it, I was sort of the tech support person they would call. And again, just through video games, I mean, network gaming became a thing. The idea that you can play a video game with someone else became a thing. And this game called Doom came out. And all of a sudden, all my friends wanted to play it. They didn't have network cards. They didn't have modems. Again, I ended up being the guy to install them and help troubleshoot when it didn't work. And what happened was, at some point I realized I really I liked the part where we were playing the game, but I really loved everything that led up to it. I love troubleshooting. I love figuring out why a network driver didn't work, or what network protocol I should use. Or a lot of times I was, running the cable, crimping ends, and just something wouldn't work right. And it was a lot of fun to figure out what was wrong. I mean, it was just like, the same way you might do a crossword puzzle. To me, that was a puzzle I wanted to solve. But what happened was, I was doing it over and over and over again. And at some point, it became the same problems over and over again. I wanted bigger, badder challenges. So when I was in college, I approached a local computer store, because at that time, that's how you got a computer, was through your local computer store. And I said, look, you guys are in the business of building computers for people. I want to service those computers for your business customers. If I do a great job, people will want more of your product, or they will be happier with or they will be happier with your product. So it's a good thing for you. And they were happy to do it because they didn't want to be in the services business. And so in 1996, when I was in college, I started Interworks. It was not because I wanted to be a business owner. It was not because I want to retire when I'm 40. It was just, this is fun, and I want to solve bigger, more complex problems. And if you look at our model today, I mean, honestly, it's the same thing, except instead of going to the local computer store and making that pitch, they're billion-dollar computer stores. It's Dell or VMware or Tableau or Snowflake. And it's the same thing. We go, look, if we do great, we love your product. If we do great work, people will be happier with your product, and they will, likely want more of it. It's the model has served us really well.
And so that first store that you went to and pitched to, they said yes?
Yes, because a lot of these companies will say, "Look, we're in the product business, the hardware business, the software business. We recognize that services is not an area we want to focus." Frankly, I mean, a lot of times what we'll hear is we have to do it because our customers demand it, but we want to stay as lean as possible. So to the extent we can leverage partners, we want to leverage partners, and because frankly, if you're in the business of building software, that is a completely different business than running a professional services team or a consultancy. So yeah, it works well. They're almost eager to have a great partner come in and take what might be considered a burden for them off of their shoulders.
It's a totally different strategy to scale a services company than it is to scale the software company. And not only is it different, but if you're trying to scale that software company, and if you're relying on your internal sales engineers or implementation engineers to facilitate that scaling, then you're really handcuffed, right? If you're not using partners.
That's right.
So I want to talk a little bit more about your growth and scaling. And so it started as one person, 96. Now you have over 200 employees across the globe. So first off, who were your first couple hires? And then kind of what does it look like going from one to several to 200 employees?
Sure. Yeah. So, again, I started this with kind of these very, let's just call them like pure intentions. Like I just wanted to do, geeky, nerdy things. And I wanted to be proud of the work I was doing. And I really enjoyed, I mean, I kind of look back at those moments. Back then there used to be, so when we were doing IT services in the early days, we did a lot of cabling for businesses because most buildings weren't wired for networks. There was no such thing as wireless back then. I mean, I would sit around and look through cabling magazines and all the different ways to make cabling look nice, and that was my idea of fun, right? Like just going, how can we do this and make it the best thing possible? And I wanted all my buddies to be part of it, so I was constantly trying to bring my roommates in, my college buddies, my buddies from the high school days. And so the first, the earliest hires were when we get a job that was too big for me to do. And I would just turn to my friends and say, hey, you want to go do this thing? And, paid them hourly. When I was in college, I obviously I met a lot of people, had just college friends come on board. And then, in 2000, when I got my master's degree, that's when I say that things got serious. That's when Interworks became my real job. And, when I acknowledged, what, I'm going to do this full time, not go work for IBM or Boeing or some other company. That's when we started looking at full-time hires. And the first several full-time hires were all people that or most of them were people I had a friendship with that had nothing to do with work. And it really worked well. And today, a lot of those people are still here. There's a lot of people here that, I grew up playing high school soccer with. I mean, some of these are people that go back to like when I was 5, 6 years old. So it makes it a lot of fun because it never really, there are days when it seems like work, but there are a lot of days when it's just a bunch of, you know, the same way you and your buddies might go out, like our common cause is like furthering this technology thing, but we're all doing it together, and we get paid in the meantime, which is an added bonus. So I think in early days, you asked about what did the transition look like going from small to the size we are today. It definitely has been a heck of a transition. I mean, in the early days, everyone was in Stillwater, Oklahoma. We were small. We were all in one building. We were all single. No one had kids. We were all, pretty young. And it was we go work. We might work on the weekend. We might be working at night. We were doing things together outside of work, like we just go play tennis or golf or go to the movies or whatever it may be. I mean, it was a very tight knit group and really very strong bonds and friendships. As we grew, life also happened, and what I mean by that is all of a sudden people are starting to get married, kids are starting to show up, which means that family is obviously increasingly important. And you look at today, the same people that we used to go all play on intramural softball teams together, we're like, well, now we have kids that are playing in sports, so or have other activities, dance, theater, whatever it may be. So people are running out of the office to go do things with their kids, and that's it's changed the dynamic in that we don't all spend as much time together. Uh, People aren't necessarily hanging around in the office till 8 p.m. anymore. And now we're spread all over the country. So we still have a heavy density in Stillwater, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, but we've got people in Portland and DC and New York. And so we have to be a lot more deliberate about keeping the group tight knit. We leverage tools. We have some things that we encourage the groups to do to keep the camaraderie and keep a tight knit organization. And to be honest, we resist headcount growth as much as possible. It's a hard thing for me to articulate, but because all we've done is grow, 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 grow. But I fight it every step of the way, especially when it comes to headcount growth. That is the idea of one day we'll have 1,000 people here has absolutely no appeal to me. In fact, it has the opposite. It sounds completely not interesting. So for me, I'm always questioning like how can we continue to grow, do more, extend our reach, our responsibilities, our leverage. How do we continue to be seen as a thought leader in the space we're in, but not grow in headcount? That doesn't mean we're not going to ever hire anyone. It just means that we're very focused on trying to work, let's say, smarter and focus on the quality rather than focus on size or revenue targets or headcount targets.
Totally. Yeah. What's the main reason why you're kind of averse, or not averse, but why that doesn't appeal to you?
Well, for me, I go back to why am I doing this in the first place? I mean, I think that at some point I crossed a threshold where I tend to think I live a pretty simple life, and I have no earning an extra dollar or hundred or million, frankly, doesn't really change anything for me. I mean, for me, I go the reason I'm happy to make more money is to find ways to take that money and use it for a purpose other than my own. So there is an agenda around that, but I'm not motivated by. We're already working for some of the most well-known companies, and they value our work, and they tell us that, right? And so for me, I feel really good about that when I go, why did I start this in the first place? It was never to be a business owner. and it was never to go make more money than I need. I started this because I love technology and I liked doing things with my friends. And it took a long time for me to realize this. I mean, I didn't, as I was going through this in the early days, I never really stopped to think about it. But what happened was we were growing so fast that and at some point I thought, we don't have a business plan and we didn't have a traditional kind of vision mission statement in the early days. And what was happening was everyone was calling us saying, come help us with this thing. And we were saying yes to everything. And at some point I thought, if we keep doing this, we will have 10,000 people here. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not for me. And I think that for me, I go, what about work is fun for me? Like, why do I like coming in Monday at 8 a.m.? And what makes me excited about coming in Monday at 8 a.m. and starting my day? And for me, I want to be proud of the work we're doing. And I want to look around at the people that are here and go, I'm proud of these people. I like these people. I'm happy to see these people. And, and and then when I look at who we're doing work for, I want to be proud of that as well. And so for me, I go, if those three things are true, then I am happy. And so we came up with this mantra at Interworks called, this phrase of do the best work for the best clients with the best people. And the idea is that, we of course, revenue matters. Of course, profitability matters. That is not the most important thing. Now, if we're losing money, then that would be a very important thing. But we've always been, we've always been in a situation where that's just not been the case. So for us, we go, our priority is let's go do great work. Let's make sure every single person here is great. And I could talk more about what that means. And let's make sure the clients we work for are great. And I can talk more about what that means. And if we focus on those things, the money will come, the profitability will come. Let's be mindful of those, but let's make sure those three conditions are true. I think keeping those three conditions true is easier if you have 100 people versus 100,000 people. Yeah.
So doing the best work for the best clients with the best people. I want you to talk a little bit about hell yes hiring and what it sounds like also hell yes um, client selection, right?
Yeah. So what happened was kind of the same thing, right? Like in early days, I say my buddies, like we hired my buddies a lot, but it really wasn't just anyone who I was buddies with. It was a particular kind of person, and there was a certain work ethic that came with them, and a sort of resourcefulness and a level of autonomy. And this has been tweaked along the way. So it's not like on day one we felt like we were amazing at hiring. This just got better and better over time. But what happened was, we would bring people in for interviews, and at some point today, if you look at our process, the way it works is you've got what probably most people do. You have your standard phone screen, people come in, they probably talk to a few different people. I think where we go sort of above and beyond, there's a couple things we look for, and then there's a few things in our process that are slightly different. So at some point when our growth accelerated, we thought, when we hire the wrong person, it is expensive. And I don't mean dollar wise. I mean, sometimes you can hire the wrong person and they can do the job. And from a direct revenue perspective, it looks like they're making the company money and all that. But what happens is when you hire the wrong person, it erodes the culture, and no one may actually know it. And that individual in and of themselves may not be enough to erode it. But when you start having 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of the wrong hires, you start to lose a little bit of the identity of the company, and maybe the work's not quite what you want, or maybe they're a little too selfish, and it kind of rubs people the wrong way. And it starts chipping away at the joy of work when conditions are amazing. And we started kind of looking at, well, why is that? Well, maybe we have someone we hired that, if you have a certain kind of title, they talk to you and they're great. But if you're, the person at the front desk, maybe they treat you a little differently, right? or maybe we hire someone who their work quality is great, but really everything is about them and it's not about being in service to others. And so what we started doing was when we when we interviewed people, at the end of the interview cycle, which our cycles tend to be long, or the number of people you talk to tends to be many, I should say. At the end of that, we take everyone who was part of that conversation and we have a kind of a roundup call. And we go around and say, what did you like? What did you not like? And be picky, like nitpick on the positive and negative. We take the feedback from the people at the front desk that greeted that person when they walked in the door. Because again, did that person walk in and kind of, were they condescending and rude to the front desk person because they think they don't matter? Or were they kind and, and caring to them? The people that if we're flying people in for interviews, the people that were on the phone, were they kind and caring to that person, or were they rude? Do they understand the nuances of traveling? If they're new to travel, it's okay, right? But we analyze like what kinds of questions do they ask? We look at the emails they sent in and sort of the quality of communication. We make everyone who comes in do a presentation, regardless of what role they're hiring for, and regardless of if their role even involves directly presenting to clients. Because what we want to do is we want to make sure this person can clearly communicate. And then the final step of the interview is they have to interview with myself. And when I interview someone, I don't look at anyone's notes. I don't know. I don't want any information about the person. I want a blank slate. No notes, no anything. I look at their resume for the first time, and I look at what role they're interviewing for the first time. I have no idea what their salary expectations are at that moment. And so and I just ask very general questions. Hey, tell me about you. Why are these things on your resume? Tell me your, kind of your life story and how you got here. Why did you major in theater, or, whatever? Why did you go to this university? And I just let them talk. And for me, it's trying to just get to know them as much as possible. And for me, I go, when they walk out of the room, and anyone who's done interviews, knows these feelings. There are people that when they walk out of the room, there's some that you go, no way. And there's some that you go, you know what, they can do the job, period. And there's others that you go, this person was fantastic. I wish I could find 20 more like them. I hope they can start like right away. And for me, I thought, we don't want to be a 10,000 person company. We don't, even though we always have more work than we have people, I'm numb to that, to be honest. So the urgency around having to hire someone is not there for me because I'm numb to it, because it's like a permanent state where we always need more people. And so for me, I thought we have almost never gone wrong when someone walks out of the room and we go, that person was amazing. And so when we get on phone calls at the end, we go, each person has to comment on what they liked and didn't like. And before they even end with yes, let's hire them, or no, you know what their answer will be or should be based on their feedback. And so for me, I go, look, we're frankly, it's not that we have caps on headcount, but because we are being very deliberate about every single person here, let's only have the people here that we go, this person's absolutely amazing. So the thing is I think that we don't, we very rarely get it wrong when we stick to our guns on that. I'm sure there are people we pass up that would have been amazing, but most of the people that make it through, they end up really working out. And so I think what you end up with is, and I would say there are two things if you ask a Starbucks manager or an Accenture manager or an Interworks manager, what do you want out of an employee? All of 95% of the answer is the same, no matter where you go. I want hardworking. I want someone who's honest. I want someone who's resourceful. I want someone who's, I think the two things we want that maybe people don't always say are, we want people who show passion in some way that ties back to the work they're going to be doing. That's number one. And number two is we want people who are kind and caring and enjoy being in service to others. So if you come to an Interworks office, the experience I hope you get is if you're standing up front waiting there, for someone to greet you because, no one's there, every single person who walks by goes, "Oh, can I help you?" Right? Or if someone in here has a question, they go, "Hey, I'm stuck on this thing." And we use Slack for our internal communication tool. The minute it says, "Hey, can someone help me?" They have 10 responses in a minute saying, "Yep, I got you. What do you need?" That's the sort of, culture that we want. So I think the hiring thing. I mean, we definitely have tweaks, and we can do it better. And there are a lot of things wrong with our process, but I think in the grand scheme of things, it served us really well, and our culture sort of oozes from all of our locations.
Yeah, and it goes hand in hand with what you were saying about, you know, not only not wanting to grow headcount, but really being skeptical of it or averse to it. And so it sounds like, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's err on the side of not hiring somebody that still may have been a great employee, rather than erring on the side of potentially bringing on somebody that could be destructive to the culture.
Right, and yeah, and I guess just to put the final point on the hell yeah article you're mentioning. So the idea is that when we all round up at the end, if everyone's answer is yeah, I think we should hire this person, we go, that's not good enough. The answer has to be that person was amazing. I absolutely want them here. And that's what there's some variation of that is what we call hell yeah. If it's just, yeah, I think they can do the job. They seem nice. I have nothing bad to say about them. We go, no, that's not good enough. Like that, let's not accept that. The bar has to be excited, passionate, we really want this person here. At any point in the interview process, if anyone says, I'm not, I have a problem with this person and it's a valid issue, they're out. So it's yeah, it can be tough to get through. And by the way, the process is not about technical aptitude. I mean, where that comes into play is if they have a high salary requirement, they're filling a senior role. I mean, we expect that that matches their ability. But when I interview people, I don't really ask technical questions. I don't ask technical questions. For me, it's really about the person and their ability to problem solve, kind of see through smoke and mirrors when they're talking to people about what's wrong and how they can help. Just having good kind of life or soft skills. It's about emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how you said that you actually kind of go through, or whether it's, sure you don't, but the team that is making the hiring decision go through the emails, all the communications, all the individuals that this prospective employee has interacted with, to really get a better gauge at um, what sort of a communicator are they. And in terms of like being problem solvers, like what questions did they ask about how to get to the office, like what to expect and whatnot. It really can say a lot in those initial conversations.
It does, and I go back to the early days of Interworks and what used to happen. I mean, for me, everything was trial by fire and just putting lots of hours into to solve things I didn't know how to solve. And I remember distinctly in early days, people would come to me and say, um, "I have this Microsoft Exchange issue. Can you help me?" And my answer was, "Yes, I'll help you." And this was at a time when I'd never even seen Microsoft Exchange, and you couldn't just Google an answer. And so I would go in there and I would just spend 8 times the amount of time it would take someone who knew what they were doing. I wouldn't bill for that. And in the process, I learned 100 new things. And the client was happy because they just left me in the back room and I fixed their problem. And I did it with a smile and communicated with them about what's going on, et cetera. And so for me, the idea of like getting thrown into a situation where I don't know what to do, I need to figure it out. To me, that is the world of consulting, and I think that and that applies to every aspect of life. So if I'm in a travel situation and my flight's delayed, what do I do? How do I handle it? How do I react? all of those little things and the way people handle those is, it says a lot about a person's ability or a person's desire, frankly, to be in the world that we're in, which is it's a little bit of chaos. It's a little bit of getting into situations where we're dealing with dynamic personalities. We go from person to person, group to group. We deal with politics. We deal with a lot of different things. How do we react to that? So there are some people who welcome chaos, and there's some people that can't handle it, and that's okay. There's but the ones that sort of thrive in that, they excel in the world of consulting. And then the ability to communicate, right? I mean, if we send someone an email saying, hey, when can you meet with us, and it takes them 5 days to respond, I go, I don't know if the world of consulting, our world of consulting, is for them, because in our world, people expect responses quickly. And so if they really want this job and it takes them that long to respond, well, is that kind of going to, is that can you extrapolate that to what life might be like if they were an employee here?
What you said that really resonates with me is, can you succeed or thrive in that chaos with difficult personalities, and have those crucial conversations with a smile on your face and get the job done, even if it's not obviously clear? I think that that is a really on point summary of what consulting generally is.
Yeah, I agree 100%, especially if you're a small consultancy. And I think this has been part of our success, especially in those larger enterprises. I think that, when you tend to go into these larger multinational companies, when you look at how they hire, and I'm just talking very generically, right? Like usually that you have a job description with some bullet points, and I'm just going to pick a job, right? If you're an Oracle systems administrator, you are almost restricted in what you can do, how you can do it, and anything else that deviates, you go escalate to another person who that's their job. And in our world, we get to bring people on who can do a lot of different things. And when we go into these large companies and they have a challenge, our one person, our one consultant might represent 10 different job roles within that enterprise's or within an organization, because they have to have all these people doing different roles. And so what happens is we come in one or two people and they go, hey, this was great, we want more of your time. Now we've got this other problem we want you to help with. And we go help with that. And they go, that was great. We have these other three problems we want you to help with. And then they tell other people within the org. And a lot of that growth tends to be very organic and word of mouth. And I think the reason that has propelled our business is because when we hire, we are very particular about making sure we have problem solvers who are service centric, who communicate what they're doing, how they're doing it well. And who doesn't want that? I mean, in any kind of job, any kind of role, those are the sorts of things you want.
I think that is so profound, what you just said about having service oriented people organically grow, right, to grow a presence inside a company. Because one kind of narrative there, or one way of thinking about that, is that you have like very sales centric consultants that are, always looking to forcefully expand within an organization. And that is not the picture at all that you painted. The picture that you painted is, you have a service oriented individual that has the opportunity to work with a specific part of an organization, and then through natural organic conversations and trying to be of service in as many ways as possible, you naturally grow, right, with that client. And that's really truly like a beautiful story that, that is so much um, of a better experience for everybody involved than the former, right?
It's a little counterintuitive, right? When we work with our partners, before at every partner they have lots of they have a big sales team, and so we don't know everyone at every partner. And so when we have an early relationship with sales rep at one of our partners, what tends to happen is they ask questions like, well, how big is your sales team? And you know, at some level, it's irrelevant because the way we go create opportunity is not through the traditional way of doing sales. I mean, we have people who have an account exec function and have a sales function, but our ratio tends to be backwards from most people that do the same thing we do. Most people that do the same thing we do have commission salespeople, a lot of salespeople, and the ratio of sales to engineering. There's a lot of salespeople versus engineer, and ours is the other way around. For us, especially on the data side of the practice, we have a sales team to help support the consultancy. I mean, we have a lot of paperwork, we have a lot of people calling, and we need people to help manage that. So we actually took the word sales away from the team that another organization might call sales, and we switched it to account exec because they don't have commissions. Whether they close a $5,000 deal or a $50,000 deal, it gets the same pat on the back, to be honest. And for us, we go, this goes back to the early days. I was not out there I didn't call what I did sales. I mean, other people might have. When someone said, I've got this problem, I was really happy to talk through the problem and what the potential solutions are and what I thought the solution is. And then I would say, so that's what I think. And if they said, cool, we'll think about it, I would leave and I'd go to the next thing. I wasn't bugging them about it. If they called, they called. If they didn't, I had other things to go do. And I think that it was really with this attitude of, we want to be helpful, educational. We want to be the smart people in the room that can help solve the problem you're having. And if you need our help, great. If you don't, that's okay too. And if there's someone who's cheaper, you want to try them, okay. If that doesn't work out, give us a call. It's okay because there's so many other things we can do. And so now, if you look at our world today, we're going, well, sales still has. I don't want to be dismissive of sales. I think that at the end of the day, there is an art to a cycle. There is an art to kind of moving people along, building relationships. In every account we're in, we want to have 2 points of contact. We want to have a consultant that has a relationship, and we want to have an account exec that has a relationship. That way, if there's a problem with one, they feel like they can go to the other to talk about it. Because if you don't have 2 points of contact, what happens is if they have a problem with their 1 point of contact, their next phone call is to someone outside of Interworks going, I don't like Interworks. Instead of, hey, I've got a problem with this person and something they did or said or whatever. So the sales team, I mean, I just want to be clear. They clearly have value. The account execs clearly have value. They help drive activity. They help accelerate that organic growth, which sounds contradictory, but and they help keep everyone on task.
It makes perfect sense. And I think that, just to summarize, is that the traditional mindset, kind of the always be closing is not necessarily one. It sounds like that y'all adopt. Rather, it's be service oriented, be solution centric, and business will grow, right? And people will be happy.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at, if you think about your experience as a consumer of anything, you think about when you have a problem with your cell phone, if you pick up the phone and call your provider, it's the little things that make you walk away going, that was great or that was terrible. And I think that whether it's a lawn mowing business or it's McKinsey, the professional services company, or it's someone at McDonald's. I mean, the individuals make or break that experience. I'm not a big sports guy, to be honest, but in football you hear these comments like it's a game of inches, and I go, well, that's what the services business is. A lot of times you can just go a little bit further with everything you do, and people walk away going, that was amazing. I remember, I tell this story a lot, but it was like 15 plus years ago. I called a telco because we were having a problem. And I knew exactly what the problem was. I knew exactly how to fix it, but I knew it was going to take a very senior person at the telco to type the commands in to do it. And so I called this telco, and it was a regional telco. So, and I was, I was kind of annoyed going into the call, knowing how hard this was going to be. Lady answers the phone. I tell her what the problem is, and she says, "You know what? I'll get back to you." I mean, this is, what in my head was the operator, and she gets back to me with that level 3 tech who can solve the exact problem, and he says, "Yep, I took care of it. You should be good." That lady called me back the next day to go, "Hey, I just wanted to make sure you were all good. The thing you call about help." And I was blown away. I mean, I can't imagine uh, that is just such a rare thing, right? And when you think about what I just described, nothing about that is complex, sophisticated, hard. It was just someone taking the extra time and effort and energy, and the business didn't have so much bureaucracy in the way that prevented her from doing that. And for me, that story stuck with me to the point that I'm telling it, 15 years later. And when you really dissect what that story is, it's nothing special, but it's frankly, it's pretty rare that people go to that extreme, even though it's not very extreme in the services business. So I think, it's a game of inches. And I think if we just are constant, if we're genuinely caring and going that extra distance, we stand out, not because we're doing some groundbreaking, amazing, futuristic thing, but it's just because we sincerely care and we show it, which is a rare thing, to be honest.
And you're absolutely right. It isn't any incredible act of selflessness or service. It's just a very human interaction, following back up with somebody, but it is going um, beyond what the normal experience of a lot of um, service interactions are like, and that does stand out. I just want to ask then, we've talked a lot about Interworks, the how you've grown and how the company has grown over time. Um, some ways of keeping culture and keeping really the vision of the company in place as you grow. And one of those is hell yes hiring, and making sure that you err on the side of finding the absolute right employees rather than somebody that you might be questionable about, just to grow headcount or just to staff a project or whatever the case may be. And really getting into the human side of growing business, right? The human side of sales and account management, and making sure that if you have people that are wanting to help your clients, if you have consultants that are wanting to help and really looking to solve problems, then you're going to have success with each individual client and as a whole. And I think that applies. So I think that should resonate with a lot of salespeople, with a lot of consultants, with a lot of freelancers, and just really any professional. If you take the approach of try to be as selfless as possible, try to solve problems and try to help those around you. It sounds super simple, but you're going to have success. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with, in terms of advice, or about where to find you online, or about Interworks, or really anything before we close?
Well, I would just say I think that was a great summary. I think the other thing that I would marry to this that hopefully I articulate this well. I think one of the things that I get asked a lot about Interworks success, and I think that um, when we were smaller, and I was hearing conversations with CEOs of companies that are of the size we're at today, I thought, wow, this person really knows what they're doing. They're what's there's something special about what they're doing, and for me, again, we just sort of. I know this is sort of oversimplifying everything, right? But I don't think there's anything special about what we do. I think we're just doing a good job of doing what everyone knows we should be doing. And I think that the thing that is missing, I think, in a lot of with a lot of entrepreneurs or people trying to bring in some level of discipline to their practice, or trying to affect change with culture, is this notion of consistency. And I think that one of the reasons I think we succeeded early on is not because of high IQs or because we knew something the rest of the world didn't. It was really just persistence and consistency. And I think that beats talent, every time. And really just hard work. And I don't mean consistency like working hard for weeks. I mean, it was months and years and doing it, over and over. Uh, I think deep down, I genuinely believe in this idea of, being in service to others and providing a great experience. And I think if you marry that with any sort of talent that you have, and I think in this case it's technology, it's the recipe for succeeding. So yeah, I guess I would end on that note.
Thank you so much. Um, I know that we went over. I really, really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate your thoughts and experiences, and really kind of sharing the heart of Interworks and y'all's mindsets. Um, really cool.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. You've been listening to the Signal Cafe, your source for business agility and product thinking. And in today's episode, just doing good business in general, in a very virtuous manner. Thanks again to Behfar for coming on the show. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the subscribe button, and if you would, leave us a review on iTunes. This episode actually marks the end of Season 1 of the show. We'll be kicking off Season 2 in a week or two, and we're going to be focused entirely on business agility and agile thought leadership. As always, thank you for listening, and have a great day. Adios.